National Heart Disease Awareness Month, so I've known Jason and his wife for a while, but saw his journey where it seemed to be a very close call, and he's made some lifestyle changes and really turned things around, so we just asked him to come and speak about his experience.
I am 39 years old, which puts me on the very young spectrum for heart disease. I just kind of wanted to share my story because it kind of snuck up on my wife and I without us having any sort of clue. Almost, I shouldn't say kind of. Almost took me away from her and my son. So if I can share my story and get some other people out there to check their numbers, talk to their physician, change their way of life or eating or anything, then I feel like I've done a little bit more of my part. Thank you to my wife for coming and and supporting. I do also want to start with a small apology to her because there's going to be some stats in here that she doesn't know about. Probably going to make her cry a little bit. But heart disease is a real thing. So, yeah.
My name is Stephanie Felde, and my husband is Jason Felde, and he has been doing the plant-based diet for quite a few months now. He's having a fun time with it. He's always coming up with new ideas and new recipes, and he has a joy about it, and it's just fun to watch.
So a quick story of what happened. Last Valentine's Day, I got diagnosed with influenza A. No big deal, we all get the flu, right? So a little bit of what brought us from influenza A to 2 months later. I was quickly admitted into the cardiac unit here at Henry Ford. So around that same time, January, February-ish, we bought our first home and started working on that. And we were taking slow steps. Anybody that's bought and kind of remodeled their first home knows exactly what I'm talking about. It is still a work in progress. I got sick in February, bounced back from that, and her and I were doing small projects on the weekends. And right around, I would say maybe 3-4 days before St. Patrick's Day, so early part of March, I actually quit smoking after, I'm gonna say roughly 20 years of smoking. I decided to finally kick the habit. I was starting to notice that I was just beat by the time I got home from work, like more than usual. Like I was exhausted, I was having, I was short of breath, I was fatigued. And it just gradually kept getting worse and worse to the point where early April, when we had spring break, by that point, it had been going on maybe 2 weeks of where I was only sleeping 2 to 3 hours a night. And getting up and doing everything, working on the house, going to work. And those 2 to 3 hours, I could no longer lay in bed. I was now sleeping, I say in the lazy boy in the living room, but when I say lazy boy, people think, I'm still kicked back and laying down. I was literally sitting up like I was just sitting in a chair, and I would sleep with my head in my hands because that's the only way I could breathe. We still thought it was just my body going through some crazy withdrawal for some reason. I mean, I guess realized it, but didn't think, I was too young to have a heart attack or have heart problems. That's what we're all taught is you don't have those issues until, you're 50, 60, 70 years old, so yeah, no, I'm not even 40 yet. I don't have heart problems. So we worked that weekend on our flooring, and I got to where I was wheezing really, really bad and having a hard time breathing. And we were at the grocery store. I was about to pass out walking around the grocery store. And she looked at me and she goes, let's go to Walgreens. It's right around the corner. She's like, we'll see if you can get what?
I begged you to go to the doctor's store at the very wrong time.
I'm omitting that part of the story. She's like, I wish you'd let me take you to Med Express. And I was like, well, you got the keys. I can't argue with you. I don't have the energy to argue with you right now anyway. So we went to Med Express, explained to them what was going on. And they did a chest x-ray. And I bet it wasn't even 5 minutes after I got the x-ray done, the lady came in. She goes, you're going to the ER. And I'm like, what do you mean I'm going to the ER? Like, no, I just I need an inhaler. Give me a script and a doctor's note, send me home. Like, I'm not going to the hospital. She's like, so at that point, my heart was enlarged to almost 3 times the size of what it should be. I was retaining fluid. I did go to the hospital. They did another chest x-ray, CT scan, a whole bunch of tests as soon as I got there. So my heart was enlarged. The right half of my heart had completely stopped working. And the left side that was working was only pumping at 13%. So literally I was hanging on just by a thread. And I mean, I guess realized it, but didn't think, I was too young to have a heart attack or have heart problems. You know, that's what we're all taught, is you don't have those issues until, you're 50, 60, 70 years old, so yeah, no, I'm not even 40 yet. I don't have heart problems. So I got admitted and I spent 9 days in the cardiac unit at Henry Ford. 2 of those days I spent hooked up to the crash cart like you see in movies, because that's how unstable I was. So that was on a Sunday. So the following day, Monday, my dad and stepmom, my wife, and I think that was it. We were all just sitting there watching TV, kind of talking. So at this point we were waiting for, I also had some kidney problems going on due to the heart disease. They could not do a heart cath on me until my kidneys decided to kind of get in line. My heart and my kidneys were kind of fighting against each other. So they couldn't do the heart cath because the meds that they do for a heart catheter kind of take a toll on your kidneys. So I was fighting that. So anyway, we were sitting around waiting for some meds to actually, to get those 2 organs to kind of play nice together. And literally, I don't remember what the heck we were talking about. I guess it doesn't really matter. And she looked at me. She was sitting on the couch in the room. And she looked at me. Oh my God, Jason, do you feel that? I'm like, no. Like, we're talking. Like, what do you mean? My pulse jumped from like the high 70s, low 80s to about 190. I think it was like 190. It was 191. In an instant. And when I say it was like the movies, it was like watching Grey's Anatomy, or if you go back a ways on sitcoms, the old ER sitcom. But literally, alarms went off, and I bet in a flash there was 10 people in my room. My whole throat was just pulsing, and I had so much fluid built up in my chest cavity. When I would lay down in bed, I was literally dying in my sleep. And so when I would lay flat, all the fluid would go into the fluid, and extra blood would go into my lungs, and my heart wasn't strong enough to actually pump it back out. So when I woke up in a panic every 5 minutes, it was because I was dying, and that's why I couldn't sleep laying down. So I ended up being diagnosed with, and I don't know if I'm going to say this right, non-ischemic cardiomyopathy. It's a disease of the myocardium associated with mechanical or electrical dysfunction. It's a disease that affects the tissue of the heart and makes it dilate. So that was part of the reason why my heart had grown the way that it had, and makes the walls of the heart thinner, which makes it harder for it to pump, which is again why I was having such a hard time. Surprisingly, it is pretty common. Especially in the U.S. The U.S. is actually pretty common for all heart diseases. It is a chronic disease, which means I probably won't get rid of it. It may stay the same. I may fight it for years. I may fight it for the rest of my life. So I had the cardiomyopathy. I had a systolic congestive heart failure, which simply put is a condition which the heart doesn't pump blood as well as it should. And believe it or not, that is the best description I could find on Google for some reason. So I found out that with congestive heart failure, I actually have a 50-50 chance of making it past 5 years, which kind of took me by surprise. I feel great. I feel like I'm moving in the right direction. And then, reading some of these, I'm just like, ooh, okay. So if I can make it, sorry, if I can make it 10 to 15 years, I guess I'm doing pretty good. I'm beating the odds, which I plan on being here way longer than that. So with congestive heart failure, treatment can help, but it cannot be cured or reversed. So our way of eating has the chance of reversing some heart diseases, which I think tend to lean more towards the cardiovascular, heart attacks, clogged arteries, anything like that, which is great. In my case, I don't think it's going to help. All right, let me rephrase that. It will help. It's not going to, I don't think it's going to reverse any of it. Yeah. Obviously, I'm eating way better than I have in the 39 years that I've been here. So I can't complain about that. And with congestive heart failure, you can progress, but you will never regress. So like if, for example, I'm in stage C, I will never be able to go back to B no matter what I do. So stage C would be when you have actually been diagnosed with heart failure, shortness of breath, fatigue, less able to exercise, the retaining water, swollen legs, all of that stuff that we've talked about. Treatments are going to be, and I use that term loosely, the beta blockers, meds, the restricted diet. So I'm still on restrictions diet-wise with sodium, liquid intake, anything like that. And then another treatment would be a pacemaker or defibrillator. I actually had a defibrillator installed the beginning of this past October, so I'm there. So my next step with heart failure would be stage D, which is pretty much the final stage. It's going to be pretty much open heart surgery, heart transplant, or death. So hopefully I can hang out in stage C as long as possible. I count my blessings that I'm still here. Now, myocarditis is, out of the three, is the rare diagnosis. I can get it again. I actually have a 10 to 15% chance of coming down with it again. So I have to be careful, which hopefully, again, with the way of eating, hopefully my immune system is stronger. When I got released from the hospital, I was on a ton of restrictions. Diet-wise, I was on sodium restrictions. I was on liquid restrictions because of retaining fluids. I really couldn't do anything. I couldn't do anything that elevated my heart rate. There was no more coffee. There was no more pop. No caffeine. Period. There was no sugars. There was no playing with my son. I mean, how do you explain to a 7-year-old that, sorry, dude, I can't play with you? Like he doesn't get it. All of those restrictions kind of led me to this way of eating. Some of your biggest meals, I guess, per se, with sodium are your meats. So I was already cutting out a lot of meat. I mean, chicken breasts, deli meat, anything like that, like I had to cut out, period, because it was so high in sodium. Like just a plain old chicken breast cooked is 400 milligrams of sodium, and I had to try to be 600 for every meal. So I ate meat my whole life, that's how we're raised. When they pretty much tell you, hey, you got to stay in this range or you're gonna die, you're like, okay, I'm going right down the middle of the road. I finally looked at my wife and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna do this. And I didn't start out whole food plant-based. Like I started out just vegetarian, quickly just went, I guess you'd say, I don't know if it'd be considered vegan or plant-based. And I'm still not 100%. Like I got cheat days where, yep, I ordered that salad without cheese and cheese came on it. I'll eat it. I'm not perfect every day. So when I came home, I was taking about 15 pills a day and I was on 2 different inhalers, one inhaler twice a day. I am successfully down to 1, 2, 3, technically 5 prescriptions now. The biggest thing that I had to give up, a few of you in here know that I am an artist by heart and by nature. Sorry. That's always been my go-to. If I'm stressed out, if I'm depressed, that's my escape. And I still haven't been able to get back to that. For the longest time, I was too dizzy or nauseous every time I'd sit down to look at a canvas. The room would just spin, or I'd want to puke. I'm all smiles on the outside. I've also been fighting with depression. again, comes back to I haven't been able to do anything for 10 or 11 months, and who knows when I'm going to get back to being able to do anything. I had a checkup with my surgeon for my defibrillator, and I am cleared of all physical restrictions. And he told me to go ahead and start pushing myself. That's what the little Cadillac in my chest is for. So he told me to push myself, which I plan on doing. Obviously, I will be smart about it, I promise. My biggest goal is to get people, not necessarily, yes, I love the way we eat, and I love this way of eating. And I would much rather call it like my way of living, because literally it's what's going to keep me going. Do I expect all my friends and family to switch over to it? No. I mean, maybe if they see some of the progress, but I mean, if I can get some of my friends to actually start checking their blood pressure, or my best friend in the whole world still smokes like a chimney.
He's completely changed. Like, this has changed his way of thinking about life, of thinking about food and living and activities. And like I said, it just brings a joy over him with the whole plant-based things. So I don't even know how to explain it. I really don't, besides that he just enjoys it. Like tonight, him getting ready for this, he was in the kitchen just having a blast. Had the radio up, and he was just out there dicing away and making things, and he'd bring out the spoon to me, and he'd make me try things like, oh, does this taste all right? So like, that's fun to see that side of him, but it's also soothing to know that this is something, him changing the way of his life and his eating style can potentially save his life and better our life overall. So
If I can get somebody to just stop and talk to a doctor, check their numbers, think about what they're putting in their body, maybe you don't have to go through some of this crap like I did.